Welcome back, basketball fans, to another massive breakdown. Today, we are diving deep into the tectonic plates of the NBA that are shifting as we speak, right beneath our feet. The 2025 to 2026 NBA season has officially come to a close, and the New York Knicks are sitting on the throne as the newly crowned champions after a grueling, physical, and absolutely unforgettable NBA Finals series against the San Antonio Spurs. The confetti has barely been swept off the floor. The champagne is still dry in the visiting locker room. But in the NBA, there is no off-season. The relentless machine of team building, legacy chasing, and championship window calculating never sleeps. And right now, the absolute hottest topic in the basketball world centers around the runner-up, the San Antonio Spurs. They arrived on the biggest stage incredibly early, way ahead of anyone's realistic schedule. We all knew Victor Wembanyama was going to be a generational talent, a true alien who would bend the geometry of the basketball court to his will. But seeing him anchor a finals team in just his third year, alongside an incredibly young core, was nothing short of miraculous. We saw Stephon Castle take a monumental leap, establishing himself as a two-way menace who can guard the opposing team's best perimeter player while slicing through the fences on the other end. And then there was Dylan Harper, the second overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft out of Rutgers, the son of five-time NBA champion Ron Harper, stepping onto the final stage as a rookie and playing with the poise, the tempo, and the sheer audacity of a 10-year veteran. The San Antonio Spurs look terrifying. They look like a dynasty in its infancy, a terrifying empire that is just beginning to realize its own strength. But there's a massive elephant in the room, a glaring issue that was exposed under the brightest, most unforgiving lights of the NBA Finals. And that problem is De'Aaron Fox. Let's be completely clear and honest here. De'Aaron Fox is a spectacular basketball player, an all-star, a guy who has carried franchises on his back and hit clutch shots in massive moments. But in this Spurs system, alongside Wembanyama, Castle, and Harper, something completely broke down. During the finals against the Knicks, Fox was a shell of his explosive self. He struggled to make a consistent impact, shooting an abysmal 34.3% from the field, a staggering 25% from the three-point line, and averaging just 12.8 points per game when the Spurs desperately needed a secondary scoring engine to relieve the pressure on Wembanyama. Armed with a massive salary and expectations to be the veteran floor general, Fox instead looked completely out of rhythm, hesitant, and entirely disconnected from the Spurs' flowing, unselfish offensive philosophy. This has led to an explosion of front office chatter, a frenzy of trade scenarios, and one completely mind-blowing proposition that would reshape the balance of power in the entire league. Would the San Antonio Spurs trade De'Aaron Fox to the Houston Rockets in a blockbuster package to acquire one of the greatest scorers in the history of the sport, the Slim Reaper himself, Kevin Durant? Now, before we get completely carried away, we have to establish the facts on the ground. No NBA player is demanding a trade here. This is not a situation where a superstar is holding a franchise hostage, throwing a tantrum in the media, or forcing his way out through back-channel leaks. De'Aaron Fox has not asked out of San Antonio. Kevin Durant has not demanded a trade away from the Houston Rockets, where he just spent the last season after that massive trade in the summer of 2025. This is purely a basketball calculus, a front office chess match where both teams are looking at their rosters, looking at their timelines, and realizing that a swap could solve their most glaring structural problems overnight. It is a rare, perfectly balanced trade scenario that makes almost too much sense for everyone involved, especially for a Spurs team that is trying to maximize the rapidly accelerating championship window of Victor Wembanyama without stunning the growth of their most promising young guard, Dylan Harper. Let us dive deep into the mechanics, the psychology, and the absolute brilliance of this potential move. The San Antonio Spurs are in a unique and incredibly delicate position. On one hand, they just made the NBA Finals. They are the undeniable team of the future. But on the other hand, sports history is littered with teams of the future that never actually became the team of the present. Just a few days ago, legendary coach Doc Rivers went on national television and laid out a profound warning for the Spurs organization and their fan base. He compared this current San Antonio squad to the 2012 Oklahoma City Thunder, a team that featured a young Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden. That Thunder team stormed the finals, lost to LeBron James and the Miami Heat, and the entire world assumed they would be back every single year for a decade. But injuries, salary cap constraints, massive trades, and shifting league dynamics meant that trio never made it back to the finals together. Doc Rivers correctly pointed out that you can never take anything for granted in the National Basketball Association. When you have a window to win a championship, you cannot rest on your laurels. You cannot assume internal development will automatically lead to a ring, and you absolutely must strike with ruthless aggression when an opportunity to upgrade your roster presents itself. The Spurs cannot afford to just run it back and hope that Aaron Fox miraculously figures out how to play off the ball next to Wembanyama and Harper. They have to fix the glitch in the matrix now, and that glitch is the offensive fit. De'Aaron Fox is a player who needs the basketball in his hands to dictate the pace. He is a blur in transition, a masterful pick-and-roll operator, but he is not a natural off-ball spacer. When Wembanyama is operating out of the high post, or when Dylan Harper is initiating the offense with his incredible court vision, Fox is often left standing on the perimeter, where defenders are perfectly willing to sag off him and clog the driving lanes. We saw the New York Knicks execute this defensive scheme to perfection in the finals. They dared Fox to shoot, packing the paint to swarm Wembanyama, and daring the Spurs guards to beat them over the top. Fox's confidence plummeted. Former NBA champion Jeff Teague recently spoke about this very phenomenon on his podcast, pointing out the immense psychological pressure of playing next to Wembanyama. Teague noted that when you have a generational talent like Wembanyama, every single possession comes with an invisible mandate: get the big man the ball. For a scoring guard like Fox, who is used to being the absolute alpha dog on offense, that mental shift can be paralyzing. Furthermore, Teague astutely pointed out that when a veteran sees young phenomenons like Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper thriving, playing freely and earning the absolute trust of the coaching staff, it can cause a seasoned player's confidence to waver. They start overthinking. They start questioning their role. And that hesitation is a death sentence at the highest levels of playoff basketball. This is exactly why moving De'Aaron Fox makes structural and psychological sense for San Antonio, and why moving him specifically for Kevin Durant is a masterstroke. Kevin Durant is 37 years old, staring down 38, but his game has aged like the finest wine imaginable. He remains an absolute cheat code on the basketball court, an assassin who can effortlessly drop 27 points on 55% shooting without ever monopolizing the offense. Durant does not need the ball pounded into the floor for 14 seconds to get his rhythm. He can catch and shoot flawlessly. He can operate in the mid-range with lethal precision, and most importantly, he provides the ultimate pressure release valve for Victor Wembanyama. Imagine the sheer, unadulterated terror of an opposing defense try and formulate a game plan against the Wembanyama and Durant pick and pop, or try and send a double team at Victor in the post, only to realize they are leaving one of the greatest shooters in human history wide open on the wing. Durant would provide San Antonio with a true 1A and 1B dynamic. He has the ultimate respect and pedigree, meaning you wouldn't feel the paralyzing pressure to defer to Wembanyama on every single possession. He knows exactly who he is, and he knows how to integrate his historically great skill set into a team concept. But beyond simply adding Kevin Durant's offensive brilliance, this trade unlocks the true superpower of the San Antonio Spurs roster. It hands the keys of the offense completely and unconditionally to Dylan Harper. We need to spend a massive amount of time talking about what Dylan Harper just accomplished in his rookie season, because it was nothing short of historic. Selected second overall in the 2025 draft, Harper came in with massive expectations. Being the son of Ron Harper, there was an immediate assumption that he would understand the nuances of winning basketball defense and playing a structured system. But what Dylan showcased was an offensive polish and a poise that transcended his pedigree. In his rookie campaign, Harper played in 69 games, averaging roughly 12 points, 4 assists, and 3.5 rebounds per game, shooting an incredibly efficient 50.5% from the floor. He earned NBA All-Rookie First-Team honors, but regular season statistics don't even begin to tell the true story of his impact. When the playoffs arrived, when the pressure cooked most rookies into making fundamental mistakes, Dylan Harper elevated his game to an entirely different stratosphere. Let's look at the NBA Finals against the vicious, defensively dominant New York Knicks. In Game 3 of the Finals, on the road in the most hostile environment in sports, Harper played 32 minutes, hitting crucial shots and helping the Spurs pull out a gritty 115-111 victory. And in the agonizing Game 6 loss that ended the series, Harper was absolutely spectacular, dropping 25 points on 10 of 19 shooting, grabbing 5 rebounds and dishing out 4 assists in 31 minutes of action. He was fearless. He was attacking off the dribble, hitting mid-range pull-ups, reading the defense, and operating the pick and roll with preternatural calm. He looked every bit like a franchise point guard who is ready to run the show full-time. However, as long as De'Aaron Fox is on the roster, taking up massive minutes and demanding a high usage rate, Dylan Harper's development is inherently capped. He is forced to defer, to play off the ball, and to accommodate a veteran who is struggling to fit the system. By trading Fox, the Spurs essentially remove the roadblock in front of their prize rookie. They allow Dylan Harper to start at point guard alongside Stephon Castle in the backcourt. That is a defensive nightmare for opposing teams. You have Castle, a relentless, physical bulldog on the perimeter, and Harper, a 6'6" guard with a powerful frame, incredible instincts, and a relentless motor. Surrounding them with the legendary shooting of Kevin Durant and the absolute gravitational anomaly of Victor Wembanyama creates a starting lineup that is not just a contender, but a potential juggernaut that could dominate the league for the remainder of the decade. Now, we must look at this from the perspective of the Houston Rockets. Why on earth would they trade Kevin Durant to an in-state rival who is already in the NBA Finals? To understand this, we have to look at the massive predicament the Rockets found themselves in during the 2025 to 2026 season, when they pushed all their chips to the center of the table and traded for Kevin Durant in the summer of 2025. They sacrificed Jalen Green, their explosive starting guard who had been the focal point of their perimeter attack for years. The plan was likely to pair Durant with Fred VanVleet, relying on the veteran point guard to steer the ship while KD delivered the scoring punches. But disaster struck when Fred VanVleet suffered a season-ending injury early in the campaign. The Rockets were left completely devoid of a true scoring guard, relying on rookie Reed Shepherd in a reserve role, while head coach Ime Udoka scrambled to find backcourt production. The Houston offense often bogged down, heavily relying on isolation plays, and lacking a dynamic slasher to break down defenses from the point of attack. Acquiring De'Aaron Fox completely solves Houston's most glaring roster deficiency. Fox is exactly the kind of high-octane, relentlessly aggressive guard that the Rockets desperately missed. In Houston, under Ime Udoka, Fox wouldn't have to worry about deferring to a completely dominant generational big man. He could return to his natural state, a high-usage, tempo-pushing floor general who can collapse defenses, get to the rim at will, and feed shooters on perimeter. Jeff Teague was absolutely right when he said that Fox needs to get away from a situation where the entire universe is telling him to pass the ball to the franchise savior. In Houston, Fox would be empowered. He would be the engine of the offense once again. And for a Rockets team that needs an infusion of speed, playmaking, and perimeter scoring, Fox's massive salary is a worthwhile investment. Furthermore, with Kevin Durant turning 38 and possessing the ability to become a free agent after the next season, the Rockets might view this as the perfect opportunity to pivot, securing a younger all-star in his prime rather than risking Durant walking away for absolutely nothing in free agency. The financial implications of this hypothetical blockbuster are also absolutely crucial to understand. The NBA's new collective bargaining agreement is extraordinarily punitive toward teams that blow past the second tax apron. Teams are terrified of committing massive, long-term money to rosters that have fundamental flaws. De'Aaron Fox is owed a staggering amount of money, roughly $180 million over the remaining life of his contract. For the San Antonio Spurs, paying that kind of premium for a player who is a suboptimal fit next to Wembanyama and who actively blocks the development of Dylan Harper is organizational malpractice. By trading for Kevin Durant, the Spurs acquire a vastly superior fit, but more importantly, they acquire financial flexibility. Durant's contract gives him a short-term, extraordinarily high-ceiling window. If Durant leads him to a championship, incredible. If he eventually walks in free agency, the Spurs suddenly have massive cap relief, cleanly clearing their books just as Victor Wembanyama, Stephon Castle, and Dylan Harper begin to enter the primes of their careers and demand maximum contract extensions of their own. It is a win-win scenario that protects the long-term health of the franchise while massively upgrading their immediate championship odds. Let's take a moment to visualize the sheer tactical dominance of a Spurs lineup featuring Wembanyama, Durant, Castle, and Harper. On the defensive end, the length is absolutely suffocating. Castle and Harper are both big, physical guards who can switch across multiple positions, navigate screens, and apply immense ball pressure. Kevin Durant, despite his age, remains a highly intelligent and disruptive team defender, utilizing his massive wingspan to contest shots and rotate effectively from the weak side. And standing behind all of them is Victor Wembanyama, the ultimate eraser, a player who fundamentally alters the geometry of the court and forces opposing offenses into the lowest efficiency shots imaginable. On the offensive end, the synergy is flawless. Harper initiates the offense, reading the floor with veteran precision. He can initiate a high pick and roll with Wembanyama. If the defense drops, Harper has proven he can hit the pull-up jumper. If they switch, Wembanyama has a guard pinned in the post for an automatic bucket. If the defense scrambles and brings help from the strong side, the ball swings to a wide-open Stephon Castle slashing baseline, or it swings the perimeter where Kevin Durant is waiting. You cannot double-team anyone without giving up a catastrophic advantage somewhere else on the floor. It is offensive nirvana. This is the exact type of bold, paradigm-shifting move that defines legendary front offices. The San Antonio Spurs have a history of making clinical, unemotional decisions in the pursuit of championships. They understand that reaching the finals is not the ultimate goal. Winning it all is the only currency that matters. They saw firsthand in the series against the Knicks what happens when your offense becomes stagnant, when your secondary star loses his confidence, and when an opposing defense figures out how to neutralize your perimeter attack. They cannot afford to bring the exact same roster back and hope for a different result, especially not with the Western Conference being an absolute bloodbath of talent. You have the Oklahoma City Thunder ascending, the Dallas Mavericks retooling, the Denver Nuggets lurking, and you cannot give any of them an inch of breathing room. This trade scenario, this beautiful, violent restructuring of two major Texas franchises, is the ultimate testament to the relentless nature of the NBA. De'Aaron Fox, a phenomenal talent, simply found himself caught in the gravitational pull of a once-in-a-lifetime prospect, unable to adapt his game to the unique demands of the Wembanyama system. Kevin Durant, a wandering basketball savant, continues his endless pursuit of pure hoops, finding potentially the most perfectly tailored situation of his entire career in the twilight of his prime. And Dylan Harper, the rookie sensation who proved he was built for the brightest lights, finally gets a runway cleared for his ascension to stardom. No one is pounding the table. No one is throwing a jersey in the crowd. No player is demanding a trade. But the logic is screaming from the rooftops. The pieces of the puzzle are sitting perfectly on the table, just waiting for the executives to push them together. As we look ahead to the chaotic, unpredictable madness of the NBA offseason, this is the domino that everyone is watching. If the Spurs execute this maneuver, if they successfully pivot from the Fox experiment and bring Kevin Durant to the fold while empowering Dylan Harper, we might be witnessing the official coronation of the next great basketball dynasty. We might be looking back at the 2026 NBA Finals not as a heartbreaking loss for San Antonio, but as the exact crucible that forged an unstoppable empire. The basketball world is holding its collective breath, waiting to see if San Antonio will heed the warnings of history, pull the trigger, and unleash the ultimate basketball weapon upon the league. Thank you for tuning in to this incredibly deep dive into the absolute bleeding edge of NBA strategy and off-season maneuvering. Stay locked in, because the summer has only just begun and the landscape of the league is about to change forever.